July on the sidelines of the Republican National Convention that was attended by about 50 ambassadors. When the event was over, a small group of those ambassadors approached Sessions as he was leaving the podium. Kislyak was among them, according to the Justice Department. Sessions then spoke individually to some of the ambassadors, including Kislyak, so it was an individual meeting as well. In the informal exchanges, the ambassadors expressed appreciation for his remarks, and some of them invited him to events they were sponsoring, according to the official. Now, in response to this, the Russian ambassador did not respond to requests for comment. Also, the Washington Post, which was one of the sources that broke the story, contacted all of the other members of the Senate Armed Services Committee, which of course Sessions served on. Of the 20 lawmakers who responded, every one of them, including Chairman John McCain, said that they had not met with the Russian ambassador last year. Although we shouldn't be surprised, especially at the RNC meeting, he is one of the most high-profile Trump surrogates, and so it makes sense that then the Russian ambassador, or other ambassadors as well, would want to meet with him.
So that last piece of context is very important, because if it turns out that 50 ambassadors are swarming everybody and this is fairly normal, okay, well, then it's an individual meeting with the Russian ambassador. You probably remember that. But then there's the one at your office. But what if the guys that are in the, on that committee are having meetings all the time with the Russian ambassador, and McCain had 3, and somebody else had 4? Okay, that would be super important context. No, it turns out none of the people who responded on that committee, 20 out of the 26, said we had no meetings at all, and they gave further context.
Including the chairman.
Yeah, further context on that is that we were in the middle of an election, and it's not like we're meeting with the British ambassador about friendly terms or yada yada. We're in the middle of an election. There were already some allegations that the Russians were meddling in the election. That would have been weird, and it certainly would have been memorable.
Yeah, especially the second meeting, the later one that happened in Sessions' office. That was during the height of public discussion about whether there could be some sort of meddling in some form. Whether you think the meddling happened or not, it was in the political atmosphere at that point. And so, of course, Sessions is aware of that as a high-profile surrogate for the Trump campaign. Now, the actual meetings, of course, whether they happen commonly or not, are totally legal and might even be appropriate in most cases. That's not the problem. The problem is that during his nomination hearings, in 2 cases, it appears that he lied to conceal those meetings. Let's roll video 1. You're going to see the first instance of that.
And if there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it.
That's very important. What he said there is, I did not have communications with the comments. In later videos we're going to show you, he is going to attempt to change the question he was asked and change his response to it. But he was very clear there. I did not have communications. Now, he also tried to deny that he was a surrogate. I mean, look, Google Sessions surrogate and stop it at about December of last year. It's a million sources.
No,
he's a surrogate, okay?
That's not a question. I actually think that what he was trying to do there inartfully is set up the excuse he's about to, that he unleashed now once he's caught red-handed. I think he was trying to say, I was a surrogate for the Trump administration, and that's what they called me, but I did not have any contact with the Russian officials in that context.
But he didn't say that there.
But hold on. But he did it inartfully, because that's the lawyerly thing you say so you can later say, I wasn't lying, because he knows he had contact with the Russians. But he screwed up. He didn't say in that context. He said, I guess they called me a surrogate, and I did not have any contacts with the Russians, period.
Yeah.
So that's a lie. That's an unquestionable lie.
Yeah, you could have wrapped it up at the end, but the way he did it, it doesn't matter. It could have been, they say my pants are too tight, but I didn't have contact with the Russians. We don't care about the pants anymore. You said you didn't contact the Russians, and it turns out that you did. Now, that was only one of 2 cases. There was also a written question. In January, Patrick Leahy, the Democratic senator, asked Sessions for answers to written questions, one of which included this text. Several of the president-elect's nominees or senior advisors have Russian ties. Have you been in contact with anyone connected to any part of the Russian government about the 2016 election, either before or after Election Day? Leahy wrote. Sessions responded with one word, no. Now, in that case, he is going to attempt to say that his meetings with the Russian ambassador did not concern the campaign, I would have probably expanded my answer and provided some context rather than simply saying no, which seems like a blanket assertion that, of course, I didn't have any contact with them. But that is the tack that he's going to take.
It's not a close call. So his main excuse is, you meant did I meet with them? Yeah, I met with them. I just met with them as a senator and not as a Trump surrogate. Okay, but that wasn't the question. I didn't ask you if you met with them as a senator or a surrogate or whatever the hell other role you thought you were playing in your mind, right? Oh no, this morning when I came in, I was playing a caddy. Or I was playing a doctor. I was playing doctor in my head. I met them with them as a doctor because that was what was good. I don't care. My question was, did you meet with the Russians? And your unequivocal answer was, no, I did not meet with the Russians. That is 100% untrue. So hence we have perjury.
Exactly. Now that, of course, is a crime. Theoretically, if it is pursued and prosecuted, he could go to jail for literally for years for this. It seems at this point that that's unlikely, but nothing is impossible. And we're going to go on to further developments today on this story. What strikes me about this is, as with other cases, what was actually done so far as we know, is not a big deal. But it's the ridiculous lengths that they will go to hide their contact with Russian officials. Not just in his case, but of course Manafort had his weird thing. We can go back to that at some point. You had Flynn pretending he hadn't talked about things he had talked about, and Sessions lying to conceal meetings that are totally legal to have. That's what's bizarre at this point. And when you consider the massive shift in rhetoric for Sessions personally about Russia that he used to do before he signed on to Trump's campaign, and what you hear from him coming out of that RNC after he met with the Russian ambassador, it starts to seem even more bizarre.
So I want to be clear that we should have an investigation, obviously not led by one of the conspirators, who is now the Attorney General. We'll, of course, get to that conclusion in a second. Because we don't know exactly what their intent was, and we don't know why they lied about it, both Flynn and Sessions. But we do know that they did actively cover it up, thereby leading to the common sense conclusion that they were trying to hide something. They were embarrassed about those meetings. Something happened at those meetings that they didn't want anybody else to find out about. And they would risk perjury and hence their careers, etc., to make sure you did not find out that they met with the Russians.
Yeah.
So now Flynn is gone. His career is gone because he lied about that when he could have been honest about it and maybe saved his career. So what in God's green earth were they talking about that they desperately didn't want anybody to find out at the risk of their careers and in this case, possibly even a criminal indictment?
Yeah.
And that's a very fair question. And that's what needs to be investigated.
It's like they say, in some cases, especially in politics, the cover-up can be worse than the actual crime. And so I would say if you are a member of Trump's administration, protect yourself and Trump. If you had some weird contact, come clean about it now, rather than letting a member of the intelligence community leak it or having the Washington Post or the New York Times investigate it. Now, there might not be any more, but we did find out today, so far, seems fully legal, but in addition to Flynn meeting with the Russian ambassador back in December, apparently Jared Kushner was involved in that meeting as well. Now, we have no reason at present to believe that anything illicit was discussed or any laws were broken, but by tomorrow, we might find out about it. So I would say maybe they should put all their cards on the table before it becomes a major scandal for them.
And I would say one more common sense thing. Guys, there's that saying that John just told you that the cover-up is sometimes worse than the crime. No, but there's a reason what they're covering up. So meeting with the Russian ambassador is not a crime, but you're not covering it up for no reason. What happened in that meeting might be worse than the cover-up. That's why you covered it up.
Yeah, I guess.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like the reason that Nixon got in all that trouble was the cover-up of Watergate, but the reason he covered it up is because it's really bad when you break into the other political parties' offices and steal their stuff. That'll get you impeached. That's why they bothered to cover it up.
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess the cover-up is worse than the crime, but honesty might well be worse than the cover-up, I guess. Okay, so let's go on to today. Let's catch up now. Today, Jeff Sessions held a press conference to announce what he is going to do in response to the storm of scandal around him over his hidden meetings with the Russian ambassador. And so we're going to have some video for you in that. In this first one, let's listen to him explain the next step.
If a specific matter arose where I believed my impartiality might reasonably be questioned, I would consult with the department ethics officials regarding the most appropriate way to proceed, close quote. That's what I told them at the confirmation hearing. I have now decided to recuse myself from any existing or future investigations of any matter relating in any way to the campaigns for President of the United States. I went on to say this announcement should not be interpreted as confirmation of the existence of any investigation or suggestive of the scope of any such investigation.
There you go. Now, we want to be very careful with his language there because it is interesting. And as Cenk has pointed out before, there's like a lawyerly sort of thing to it. So both in that quote there, and I'm going to read it for you here, take note of what he says and what he doesn't say. He says, I have decided to recuse myself from any existing or future investigations of any matters related in any way to the campaigns for President of the United States. So that is a recusal, but it is not a recusal from anything having to do with the Trump administration and Russian officials or Russian businessmen or anything like that. Anything having to do with the campaign for president. And so that is something, and you might consider that progress, but there's a lot of stuff he could get involved in that he could argue, I never said I was going to recuse myself from these things.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. So they've set themselves up in a weird situation here. They might have totally misplayed this. Let me explain. So right now, since he recused himself on those particular investigations, there's the acting deputy attorney general who steps in, who turns out to be an Obama appointee. Okay, so he's now leading the investigation. Well, that might be good enough right there. Let's see how long that lasts. But Democrats are calling for a special investigator, right? And the person who would normally have appointed that is Jeff Sessions. But the independent investigator would now presumably be appointed by the Obama appointee, the deputy acting attorney general, right? So he might have been better off doing a special counselor to investigate this matter while he could
choose it.
While he could choose it and before he recused himself. Now, they don't want that because they think, oh my God, once you get somebody like that in, it's like Ken Starr, they'll come in and they'll dig up everything. Yeah, maybe, but then you could have picked the guy. Now it looks like the Obama appointee is either going to head the investigation or pick the person who does. So
assuming they go by the rules.
Right, again, so assuming that he's going to stick by this and not do the lawyerly tricks that John is talking about.
Yeah. So we've been talking a little bit about how Sessions is going to try to avoid any further repercussions for what's happened. And there's been a few different strategies. You can see the timeline online. There's a lot of good sources breaking that down. But we saw live the difficulty that Sessions is personally experiencing in figuring out how he's going to address this. And so JR put together a mashup of how he is going to attempt to use the fact that he apparently has the worst memory of any human being alive, and that is going to be his defense. You're going to see it on display in this clip.
Apparently sent a staffer to my office. I did not see him. I started off by saying, I don't remember a lot of it, but I do remember saying I'd gone to Russia. I don't recall, but I don't recall any specific.
Do you recall meeting with Ambassador Kislyak any other times?
I don't recall having met him. I don't recall, and don't have a sense of it, but I don't recall having met him.
Have you met with any other Russian officials or folks connected to the Russian government since you endorsed Donald Trump?
I don't believe so. We meet a lot of people, so. Thank you all. Take care.
And he's out.
Okay, so those meetings, one of them happened in the middle of the summer, the other one happened in September. I've had a lot of meetings, business meetings, political meetings since September. So I might not recall the specifics of a particular meeting in the middle of September. I might not even remember a person I met with for a second, right? But if you said to me, hey, Cenk, you remember in September you met with this guy and gave me his name and his face, I'd be like, oh, yeah, of course, I met with him, right? And do you remember generally what you guys talked about? Of course, because we're human beings, and unless we have some sort of clinical problem with our memory, September of last year is not that long ago. Of course you remember it, especially if it was a Russian ambassador.
at that particular time.
Right.
Okay, you don't remember the Bolivian ambassador. Fine, nothing against Bolivia. But Bolivia did not have an international scandal going on directly related to the campaign that you're a surrogate for. There's only one country that did have that. I think that you'd remember it.
Yeah. So anytime you see these politicians say, "I don't recall," 20 times in a row, they're in a world of trouble, because that's a lawyerly answer to, I mean, if you got evidence on it, I guess I'll have to admit it later. But right now, I'm not positive you have the evidence on it, so I won't say I didn't do it. I'll just say, I don't remember, man. What was it? Oh, I met with the Russian ambassador. We talked about the business deal he made with Trump. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah. Now, you get all of these really weird moments with the Trump administration where either it's seventh dimensional chess or it's a lack of communication between different arms of the administration. But we know that there was the talk of the full confidence for Michael Flynn right before he resigned from his position. We're going to have a little bit of video for you on that. And so the question of whether he would recuse himself was all over the place today. And so Sean Spicer comes out early this morning and says there's nothing to recuse himself from, and anyone who calls for it should be ashamed. Then you also had Trump weighing in, and he said this.
Did Sessions recuse himself from investigations into your campaign in Russia?
I don't think so at all.
When did you first learn that Sessions spoke to the Russian ambassador? Did you know during the campaign? When were you aware that he spoke to the Russian ambassador?
I wasn't aware of that.
When did you find out?
You should have spoken truthfully about whether he spoke with the ambassador.
I think he probably did.
So that's the press secretary for the president and the president apparently on a completely different page than their attorney general within just a couple of hours of him recusing himself.
Well, so let's go over the mess that they have here. They're not winning with this. This is a mess. First, Sessions says that the charges are, quote, unbelievable and, quote, false. Then he comes out and says, I'm just kidding, I'm recusing myself. Okay. Trump, when asked at the very end of that clip, do you think he was truthful during the confirmation hearings, whether he told the truth? And he said, he probably did. Okay, all right, interesting. But to me, the worst one was Sean Spicer. His interview with Fox News, where he's going to rip into people asking Sessions to recuse himself, is going to air tomorrow. So that's how badly they miscommunicated. Because they're bumblers. What did I tell you? Number one thing about Trump is not the hateful stuff, it's his incompetence. He couldn't manage his way out of a paper bag, I told you 1,000 times. So here they are with absolutely will not recuse you. Shame.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
Okay? And then right after she says that, and the actual guy pops out and goes, no, not shame. I'm recusing myself. Come on, it's incompetence. They don't know what they're doing.
It's like Trump comes out and says Sessions has done nothing wrong, as Sessions is already halfway across King's Landing with bloody feet. Like, dude, catch up, man. The wheels of the government are turning.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we've got the little bit of an update there. I don't know what's going to end up coming out of the Kushner and Flynn stuff, but it's a complicated thing. And I know one of the things that Spicer is apparently going to say tomorrow now, but we already know what he said is, it's just the Democrats, they're just trying to find this stuff. Man, we do production meetings here, and a bunch of people come with different stories, and we don't spend like an hour trying to find anything about Russia. You can't go a week without some ridiculous thing. It's not like I got involved in his transition team and said, you should surround yourself with people who all have these weird, bizarre ties to Russia. We don't want it. We're not looking for it. You guys keep dishing it up. I know some people think that the first job of a journalist at this point is to not discuss any story that involves Russia, even tangentially. But stuff is happening, laws are being broken, and we're going to investigate it. Okay, we're the cop on the beat at this point.
Okay, I want to do something a little separate here for a second. Okay, so today, as Jeff Sessions recuses himself from the Russian investigations of Trump, I'm going to say this again because I don't think people are getting it. Now, look. On the show, we show you guys facts and then we do analysis of it. So the facts in this case are Sessions has stepped down for talking to the Russian ambassador. Michael Flynn talked to the Russian ambassador 5 times on the day that the sanctions were imposed, additional sanctions by Obama during the period of the transition. And now Mike Flynn has stepped down. Now we find out Kushner has done the talks with the Russians. And what do the Russians mainly want? They want the sanctions lifted, and because it affected a $500 billion deal with ExxonMobil. The ExxonMobil CEO becomes the Secretary of State. This is all. Okay, those are the facts. Now, let me tell you what I think happened, and then you will see later that this is true, if I'm right. He did a business deal with Russia, a deal where he gets paid. Tick-tock, tick-tock. I thought in the beginning when he first came in, I'm like, I don't know. There's no way he's getting reelected. I said that from day one. I said Elizabeth Warren or anyone else would landslide him in 2020. That is an issue of policy, demographics, his incompetence, et cetera. That's a separate issue. But I said on day one, I didn't know if he was going to go the whole 4 years. I assumed he would. And then as I saw one mistake after another in the Russia story developing a little bit, I thought, oh my God, I think he's only going to last a year and a half. Now I'm moving the clock even further. He might not last 6 months because he did a deal with the Russians. I'm not talking about a deal that people have loosely in their heads here where it's like, oh, I guess the Russians helped me win the election a little bit by doing some propaganda and they leaked the emails and that's helpful to me. And then later I'll think about lifting the sanctions and,
something vague.
Yeah, I won't say that, right? But you know how this is going to go. I become president, you get the sanctions lifted, everybody's happy. And you could keep that perfectly vague and totally get away with it. That is not, my guess is, that is not what happened. No, Trump didn't ever really care that much about being president other than winning. I'm going to be winning, right? The number one thing and almost only thing he cares about is money. Money. He did a business deal with the Russians. You give me money, you give me a portion of the oil contracts, then I lift the sanctions for you guys. So when I lift the sanctions, I Donald J. Trump, make money. That's the deal he did. Now, the reason why people don't believe that, first of all, it's fair to say at this point there's not enough evidence on that. No question. They need to do the investigations. You can't just go on my hunch.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, right? So, but they should thoroughly investigate. But the reason people think it is not plausible is because they think, who could be that stupid? Well, if the money comes to you at some point or you have a percentage of an oil company, well, of course the FBI or intelligence officials are going to know that or figure that out. And who would be brazen enough to want to do a business deal like that when you're already president?
Yeah.
Because you're making two critical mistakes in your assumptions. One, you think if I was president, that'd be plenty good enough. No, for Trump, it's never good enough. The greed is endless, and it's all about the money. So his priority is, how do I turn the presidency into more money? The Russians come along and say, I'll give you billions of dollars in a percentage of an oil company if you lift the sanctions, because I'm going to make $500 billion once you lift those sanctions. He thinks, now that's the art of the deal. Yes, I want the money. So you're underestimating how much he wants the money. The second and most important part is you're underestimating how stupid he is. No, I'm not kidding. Like, people think, oh, no, he made all this money, he must be smart. To this point, he's lost in the polling almost every category. They don't trust him, they don't this, that, they've lost faith in him, yada, yada. But the two categories he still wins on is he's strong, which I'll give him, okay? Strong in a lot of wrong ways, and they think he's smart. No, he's not smart. His daddy left him $200 million and he's bungled it ever since. That's why he needs to make deals like this, because he doesn't have that much money. Okay, I don't care if you believe me on that, okay? What I'm telling you right now, ahead of time, is his stupidity is record-breaking. I know. I studied all of his business deals because of this damn campaign. I know how incompetent he is. I know what a loser he is. And so he is stupid enough to think, I do a business deal with Russia where I get billions of dollars, and nobody will find out. Hey, listen, man, I didn't release my taxes and I didn't get caught.
That's true.
I did Trump University, an obvious frickin' scam, and I won the presidency anyway. Look at all the things I've cheated on my whole life, and I'm president. I'm above the law. I'm not going to get caught. Yes, he's that stupid. So he will eventually get caught because, no, you can't hide that indefinitely from the FBI, especially if it turns out everybody on your transition team, your campaign team, went and, like knuckleheads, like, hey, Russian ambassador, over here, right? And by the way, a little ending side note here, 6 Russian ambassadors have mysteriously died or been killed since Election Day, including one on Election Day, including a guy who was declared dead in the back of his car, and declared killed, and then they switched it to, oh no, he had a heart attack. Why was he sitting in the back of his car having a heart attack? I mean, if you look into all the 6 different deaths of those Russian ambassadors, mysterious illness, never mind, I meant heart attack. Another one, blunt force injury. No, I meant heart attack. Okay, the Russian consul saying that. 6 Russian ambassadors dead since November? There are no coincidences like that. They made a deal. He's gone. He's gone.
I don't know anything about that part. I know about a couple of them. I mean, I don't. We would have to then have a theory for who is then killing them and why, which isn't immediately clear to me. But it is a startling number.
Okay, it's super clear to me. Look, I don't know exactly why he's killing them, and of course you have to prove all this out. Again, my speculation is lovely, and I do that based on logic and facts we already have in front of us. But I don't have secret evidence, okay? So you have to actually get the evidence.
Yeah.
But in the case of the Russian ambassador, so we don't know for a fact, of course, who killed it, or I mean, why they were killed. Maybe it's because they knew the deal, or maybe because they leaked to FBI investigators. Like one of them was an ex-KGB guy, considered a source for the British agent who wrote the dossier. So it might be that they were killed because they leaked. But I know who killed him.
A lot of people think the cybersecurity guy that was pulled out of the meeting might have been for that same reason.
The guy who killed him or ordered their deaths is obviously Putin. Obviously. Who else is going around killing Russian ambassadors? And who would have the power and the ability to go inside Russian consulates? 2 of the killings happened in Moscow. Who else is going to do that? No, it's obvious. And Putin has done it before. Anyway, all right. I've over-speculated.
Thankfully, the investigation will continue, both on the political side, but also, thankfully, the journalists who are, as we speak, finding out more about these deals which we haven't even covered yet on the show, like the fertilizer king or the commerce secretary's connection to a Russian oligarch. Like, there's a lot of stuff we're going to be getting into that we haven't just yet, but those will be ongoing. Unfortunately, they're facing the Republicans voted not to release the Department of Justice's findings currently, when supposedly we just all want to see the evidence, right? Well, the Republicans are trying to block that, and the weird strain of denialism that's going around amongst some journalists. But thankfully, regardless of both of those, the investigations will continue.
Okay, I'm going to say one last thing. Give us more journalists and we'll uncover it. Okay, for now, this is just my speculation. Okay, there's a couple of guys I want to hire, and Washington Post got reporters, they find out that Sessions had these meetings. New York Times has reporters, they find out that the Obama administration had, right before they left, was giving out all the intelligence on Russia to all the different parts of the government so that the Trump guys couldn't shred them once they came in, right? So we have reporters, we'll get more reporters, and we'll get on it.
Hopefully.
Could you imagine if we uncovered it? You think we can't do it? All right, let's see what happens. tytnetwork.com/go. Okay, that's what I'm telling you.
Briefest possible commentary on the White House spreading that stuff. So a lot of people are incensed by that. I wish the Obama administration had done that for a lot of other types of data. Data having to do with climate change, the LGBT community. There was all this stuff that was deleted. I wish they'd done more of that. Anyway, really fast, let's wrap up the Sessions stuff. So as of today, Sessions has recused himself from a limited portion of investigations of Trump involvement with Russia and all of that. But of course, he's still in the position as Attorney General. Now, this is a new reason to oppose him having that position. We've laid out many good ones for you over the past couple of months, but a lot of people are calling for him to step down. The sort of standard bearer ideologically for the Democratic Party right now has joined that group. Bernie Sanders put this statement out today. We need a Justice Department that will give us the facts about Russia's involvement in the 2016 election and their ties to the Trump campaign, not one led by someone who deliberately misled Congress about his own communications with the Russian government. We also must find out what President Trump knew about meetings involving his campaign and the Russians. Attorney General Sessions should resign, and a special prosecutor should be appointed to give the American people credible answers about Russia's involvement in the U.S. election. So some people will perhaps say, and there was tons of Democrats calling for him to recuse himself. There were some Republicans, to their credit, also calling for Sessions to recuse himself. But many are not stopping there, saying he must now step down from his position as Attorney General. And of course, some will be pursuing legal consequences for his perjury.
Yes. politicians don't take a middle step if they're not worried about the end step. So he does the recusal so he doesn't have to step down. That means he thought there's some chance I'm going completely down for this. Like that I won't be Attorney General anymore and my career will be completely ruined. I recuse myself. Yeah, no, it's fine. I recuse myself. Now, most of the time that doesn't work because then the other side goes, see, there's something wrong and we need to investigate it further.
There's blood in the water, basically.
Yeah. So now, in how it would go normally is the media would continue to cover it, and then there'd be pressure built up on the administration. In this case, I believe the media will continue to cover it, but there might come a point where Trump goes, I don't care how much pressure there is. I don't care about the media. I'm just going to call them cheaters and fake news.
Yeah.
And so, no.
The enemy.
Sessions, you know what happened, and I know what happened with the Russian ambassador. So you're not going anywhere. I don't need a new attorney general that doesn't know the deal.
Okay, I know that we have to go to our break, and we will in just 1 second. If you could get ready with video 6, though, this is an extremely short video. It came out in July of last year. This is Paul Manafort, who, of course, had his own problems. A weird, bizarre tale about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin and all that. But I saw this spread around on Twitter, and it reminded me of Sessions sort of stumbling over his memory. But look at how Paul Manafort responds to a question about these sorts of communications and deals.
So to be clear, Mr. Trump has no financial relationships with any Russian oligarchs.
That's what he said. That's what I said. That's obviously what our position is.
I need a good response. That's what my dog said. They said, I heard somebody said, you talking about practice?
Playoffs?
Ridiculous. Do you want to go to that before the break or
Yeah, let's just
after?
do it right now.
Okay, so should Jeff Sessions actually resign? How serious is this sort of lying in front of Congress? Let's go to an expert on this sort of lying. A young man, there's going to be video 2, by the way, a man named, it's Jeff Sessions.
As a former federal prosecutor for 12 years, attorney general for 2 years, I know and believe very deeply in the rule of law and the fact that honest and testimony is required if we're to have justice in America. The fact is that we're dealing and wrestling with allegations that suggest perjury or obstruction of justice. The president has a full and should be given a full opportunity to respond to that, but fundamentally we're going to have to wrestle with that, and that issue will not go away. I believe there is such a thing as truth. I believe there is right and wrong. I believe our universe is ordered in that way, and when we lie, people are hurt. It always so, and it always will be so. And it demeans our justice system to have untruth spoken. And that's, I think, the thing that's most troubling about this entire affair. And I hope we are not lowering the bar with regard to high standards of honesty and integrity demanded of public officials. People see things differently than just what party you belong to. I am concerned about a president under oath being alleged to have committed perjury.
So let's get this right. Jeff Sessions asked very clearly by Senator Franken in his confirmation hearings, did you have contact with the Russians? Said, I did not have communications with the Russians. We now know that he had 2 separate communications with the Russian ambassador, flat out lie, incontrovertible. In another instance, Senator Pat Leahy, with a written question saying any contacts with the Russians in any way, shape, or form, he said no. So incontrovertible lie, perjury. Yeah. So let's be fair, though. Let's use the Sessions standard. The Sessions standard is don't lower the bar for public officials and let them get away with any kind of lie. This issue, he said, will not go away. So agreed, Jeff Sessions. It should not go away, and perjury in front of Congress like that is unacceptable and should, as you rightly stated, immediately should lead to resignation.
And in terms of the consequences, it's not just for Sessions. I mean, we're talking about the integrity of these hearings going forward. If he can get away with clearly lying about something, a verifiable fact, why should any nominee tell the truth in the future? What is the point of it when you can tell convenient lies, and then if it turns out you lied, hell, I'm already in office. We've got power. What are you going to do about it? This is about the future of a very important check on the president's ability to put into office people who might be trying to deceive the American public.
And back then they said, oh, this isn't about the affair Bill Clinton had. Oh, golly, gee, no, it's not about that. and we were investigating Whitewater, but there was nothing in Whitewater, so we just and then we found an affair because we just kept digging and digging. But even that's not a big deal, but he lied. He lied. And that is, we cannot lower that bar.
Yeah.
He has to resign immediately. Well, Jeff, I don't know what you said to the Russian ambassador, but I do know you lied.
I didn't even know that Kathy Bates was so vocal about these hearings.
You gotta go, son. You gotta go.
Okay.
Okay.
Break
all right.
time?
Yes, we got to take a break. We do have other news, believe it or not. And we'll be right back with that.
Welcome to the Control Room, exclusive members coverage of 2IT postgame live from Rebel headquarters in sunny Los Angeles. So Jason, the air is electric after yesterday's postgame.
He's talking about Miami. You know, the only thing about this, Jason, is we've heard the Miami stories. I'm looking at Kasperian's interest here. She's giving him the cordial glance to the side, but I just don't know if it's really there.
Oh, that's where the vagina is.
Okay, that joke landed like Apollo 13 there, and then Kasperian gives him the courtesy laugh, gives him the Edwin wave.
Had you had sex at that point when you took that class?
Anyways, so...
Hold on a minute. He's found an opening. Is he finding his way to come back, Jason? Unbelievable! Jake Kruger coming back! With a comment, no one would have seen this coming.
And he's in the mood, and there's some music in the background. He's got the sideburns, he's got the long hair in her 30s.
He won't fan himself. There's no way he's ready to. I mean, I've expected.
She's like, well, that was something.
He's got it. It's unbelievable.
Every dog has its day, and this dog is having the best day of his damn life.
That was an outstanding postgame. If tonight's postgame is anything like last night's, we were in for another.
Exactly right, Francis. And don't forget to check out the TYT postgame after the Young Turks every weekday on tytnetwork.com/memberslive.
Welcome to Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. I'm Brett Ehrlich, and this is Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. The Trump administration, Trump mandated Trump, that Trump, every Trump, other Trump, word Trump, be Trump, Trump, Trump. Trump.
back on the Young Turks. We just heard an amazing story from John. Anyway, maybe we'll do it in the postgame. All right, donors to the Journalism Drive, $3 from Ingrid in Norway. Thank you, Ingrid, all the way from Norway.
To you.
Yeah, thank you, man. $27 from Terry in Netherlands. Fantastic. And Doris from Wisconsin, $200. Wow, thank you guys. You're the best. And we hope that our reporters don't let you down. I think they've done a fantastic job so far. Oh, look at that. Wow, 1319.
It's getting up there. Okay, so you can see 1.5 million from there. Like the gap is just, it's getting there.
Yes, that's right. And once we get to 1.5, a series of excellent people that you are going to love. So the names are great.
Find out who it is.
But there's one person we haven't figured out yet, and the closer we get to 1.5, like the more I'm like, it's nerve-wracking. I'm gonna have to panic and figure out who to hire in that role.
You can
Anyway.
let me choose if you want. I'm willing to bear that burden for you.
You probably aren't actually. If I gave it to you, you'd be like, oh God, this is.
Oh no, I'd definitely pitch.
Okay.
But I'd do it.
Okay, all right. Old Turk writes in, Senator Franken, did you meet with the Russians? Sessions, I cannot answer that question on the grounds of attorney-client privilege.
Franken made a joke earlier today where he was like, I'm going to have to remind Senator Sessions that the Russian ambassador is a Russian.
Jefferson Smith writes in, quote from Jeff Sessions, I did not recall having sexual relations with that woman. So in reference to the hypocrisy that we showed. Lisa Adams writes in, I'm going with Jenk on this one. His instinct is damn good and he thinks there's a big fucking Russian deal. Rachel Pickett says, by the way, thank you, Lisa. Rachel Pickett says, or he did deal with Russia that helped him get out of financial trouble. Rachel, that's a great point.
That's true. A lot of people think that.
So that's why you have to investigate. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe nothing happened, right? Maybe it was just, hey, help me get elected president by leaking the emails, okay? Or maybe it was the oil deal. Or maybe he had borrowed a lot of money from the Russians, which is another report that we saw during the campaign.
Given a lot of money.
Right. And in return for lifting the sanctions, yeah, here you go. You don't owe us that $24 million or $240 million anymore. I don't know what it is, right? So, but it is interesting point by Rachel. You should keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, get us to 1.5 million, we might hire the reporter that figures it all out.
We might. I'm not kidding. You think I'm kidding? Okay. By the way, let me just quickly remind you of another petition that we were doing. And based on one of our reporters doing some great work. So the DNC, they were having their election for the chair, of course, Tom Perez, Keith Ellison, and others. And they had several ballots. They had 2 ballots in this case. And the old rules were that you have to release the names of who voted because it is not a secret ballot. And between the 2 different ballots. So the 2 sides, Perez and Ellison in that case, can go and try to switch votes, right? Yeah. That's how the system is built. Okay, do you know that after we inquired as to why didn't you release the names, why haven't you released the names of the first round of voting or the second round of voting yet, they've now told us we switched the rules an hour before the vote. Oh my God.
I'm sure it's nothing shady going on though.
Okay, so tytnetwork.com/release. So that is a petition to get them to release the names of the voters and who they voted for, as was their original bylines and their bylaws, I should say. And they should release the names in the first round and in the second round immediately. Now, Tom Perez is now the chair of the DNC. This was his vote. And maybe he should recuse himself from that decision. They say that the latest I heard right before we got on air is that they're going to let Nomi Konst, who is our reporter, and one of the very, very few reporters covering this race, putting this kind of pressure on.
Certainly to the extent that she did, I don't think anybody else did.
Right, and hence asking for the answers that we need to find out what happened here. We believe that they're going to let her look at the names on Tuesday of next week.
Yes.
So, by the way, thank you, because your pressure helps to make that happen. Otherwise, if nobody bothers asking the questions and nobody puts on pressure, oh, look at that, we changed the rules at the last second and we never told you and we never released the names like we were supposed to. And that's that. That's why we do journalism. So thank you for everybody who helped hire know me. You did that through tytnetwork.com/go. Boy, if we had more reporters, there's a lot more to uncover there.
That's
so
true.
Thank you to all of you guys, and go sign that petition. Make sure they release those names.
Okay, so hopefully we're going to get to your favorite story of the day, the CNN story, and I would really like us to be able to do the EPA story that we weren't able to get to yesterday, so we will try to do that. In a surprisingly self-critical report, CNN's Sarah Murray described how CNN earlier this week was duped by Trump into providing hours of positive coverage on him for supposed immigration plans that he apparently had no interest or plans to ever actually pursue, and it worked perfectly. She's going to describe it in this video.
The bait and switch that the president pulled when it came to immigration yesterday. He had this meeting with the anchors. He talked about a path to legal status. Basically, they fed up things that they thought these anchors would like, that they thought would give them positive press coverage for the next few hours. A senior administration official admitted that it was a misdirection play. And you will note that when the president was actually out there speaking to the American public, he didn't talk about a path to legal status. He talked about reforming the legal immigration system so it's merit-based. That means fewer low-skilled workers, fewer people coming on family ties, more people coming on high-skilled visas. That is still closer to a Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon framework of the world than Gang of Eight, who pushed comprehensive immigration reform.
Interesting twist, although it does make you wonder. So we're not supposed to believe what the senior-most official at the lunch says, who then they allowed it to be the president's name, says. We're not supposed to believe what they say. Maybe we shouldn't believe what they say.
Okay, can I just answer John King's question? Of course you shouldn't believe what they say. Now look, they're saying it about Trump, but actually this reveals, unfortunately, a deeper truth about the mainstream media. So the Trump administration is not the first to pull in CNN anchors or other anchors and tell them, okay, here's where we're going to be headed in this speech or in this press conference or in this new bill that's being proposed. They give them a little taste of it, then the anchors go out and go, oh, I have access, and here's what I found out, and they report it dutifully, and that's what happened here. They said, hey, we're going to do a path to legal status, and they all went and said path to legal status. In fact, I should have noted that, because I remember the anchors saying that before the speech, and then I listened to the speech, and I was like, there was no pathway to legal status there. Like, did he choose to leave that out? No, it turns out not only were they lying about it, but now they admit it and kind of brag about it. Like, haha, CNN anchors, you're so stupid. Of course we lied to you so that you could give us positive coverage. And then we decided we're not gonna do that. So yes, the Trump administration is far more brazen than past administrations.
Yeah.
But John, CNN, all you guys, when Obama pulled you in or Bush pulled you in, you shouldn't have just carte blanche believed them either.
Yeah.
Like, you have this bias and you think that it's like a liberal bias because they keep accusing you of that, and now liberals say it's a conservative bias because you're run by multi-billion-dollar corporations, and there's some truth to some of the journalists being liberal and all the corporations being conservative. But what you really have is an establishment bias, that if someone in a position of power tells you something, you think that it is a fact, and you report it as a fact, and now it's like the end of Casablanca, where you're shocked, just shocked to find out there's gambling in this establishment, right? Of course the government sometimes lies to you.
Thanks for the spoiler, Jim.
Sorry. And so it's supposed to be your job, CNN, and our job to sort out when the government is telling the truth and when they are lying.
Yes.
And when you assume that they're telling you the truth all the time, well, that's how you get hoodwinked. The only difference between Trump and the other guys is that he's brazen enough to admit that he lied to you. And he lies more, that's true. But Obama lied to you plenty, Bush lied to you plenty, hello, Iraq war, and you still didn't get it through your thick head that sometimes they're lying to you.
Yeah, which isn't to say, of course, that you can't report what happens at your special lunch with the president, but you can't then just say, he says pathway to citizenship, to you, Dan. No, you have to say, okay, does this actually, first of all, acknowledge that he lies constantly, and both he and his representatives often say things that turn out to not actually represent what he plans to do, but especially if the plan he says he's pursuing goes directly contrary to his past rhetoric and past proposals, you have to acknowledge that when you report on it. And if you turn out that you've been burned, the next time you have to acknowledge that too. You report on what he says, you report on what the rumors of his plans are, but you put them in a context that allows people to understand how likely something is to actually be the case.
And let me give CNN a tiny bit of credit in this case, because they actually at least came out and said, we got hoodwinked. You know, he told us this, we reported it, and now it turns out it's not true.
Yeah, they're
now,
doing that.
On the other hand, there are parts of this where the rest of the media continues to be hoodwinked. So one of the other talking points they gave to all the anchors were, Trump's going to speak from his heart tonight. That is a meaningless slogan. It doesn't mean anything. And it's the fact that he's actually reading for a prompter means that he's speaking less from his heart. When he goes impromptu, that's actually the actual Trump. Anyway, they put that talking point to all the anchors. All the anchors said it. You go back and watch all those networks. Before the speech, they said that. And after the speech, people like Gayle King came out and said, oh, yeah, he said he was going to speak from the heart, and he did. No, don't aid and abet his lies. That's a talking point. And yes, other administrations have said talking points like that before, and you should not have aided and abetted them.
Yeah.
You should say what the reality is. They told us because they wanted us to tell you that he's going to speak from his heart. But what does that actually mean, speaking from the heart? And has he not been speaking from the heart this whole time? Like, was he purposely
He was so groomed before?
Right, before he was just lying or whatever, and for the first time he's going to be emotional? And how so? And if he really is speaking from the heart, why is this a rare speech where he's using the teleprompter from a speech we know other people wrote?
At long last, he will speak from Steve Bannon's heart.
Yes.
Say that. That actually communicates information.
So whether it's CNN or the other guys, you're supposed to be watchdogs. So from time to time, you are now doing that with Trump. You should have been doing that all along, and you should not go back to sleep when it's not Trump. Whether it's an establishment Republican or an establishment Democratic president, you shouldn't believe what the government says just because the government said it.
Yes.
You're supposed to be the ones who check up on that and hold them to account.
Agreed.
Okay, yes, let's do EPA.
Yes. Okay, good. Whew, I was worried about that. Donald Trump's assault on our environment revved up into a whole new gear earlier this week with a new executive order and a preview of his upcoming budget and how that might affect some of the departments that deal with the environment. And all of this is aimed at removing some essential environmental protections currently protecting the U.S. public from pollutants in their water, as well as other contaminants that have both national and international consequences. President Trump signed documents on Tuesday directing the EPA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to review the Obama administration's Waters of the United States rule. In doing so, Trump said he is, quote, paving the way for the elimination of the rule. Now, the Waters of the United States rule has a complicated history, why it's actually necessary, but it has to do with what sorts of waterways and not just actual rivers and streams, but wetlands and things like that will be protected by other regulations and protections that the U.S. government and the EPA have. If you eliminate this, you're one step closer to getting rid of the Clean Water Act and doing far more harm to various waterways across the country. Now, the OMB put out this statement. By looking ahead and focusing on clean water, clean air, and other core responsibilities, rather than activities that are not required by law, the EPA will be able to effectively achieve its mission. Now, that is both a lie and horrifying. The lie is that they do not care about clean water or clean air, which is why they are already attacking the EPA's ability to protect those very things. But the second part is true. They wanted to focus on those things perhaps, but not the areas that they're not required by law, which they are going to attempt to argue means regulating carbon emissions and protecting us from the worst excesses of global climate change.
So I will try to simplify what is definitely a very complicated issue. The reason is you've got certain waterways that are clearly important and need to be protected in large rivers, etc. But then there are things that are less clear. Water sources that lead into the rivers, that sometimes lead into the rivers, but sometimes are dry. The things that are, is it a pond, is it a lake, and should it be protected? So now, and by the way, not all of them should be protected. Now, if you're an environmentalist, you've got to be thinking, really, Jake, that sounds crazy. Why? Because you can do overregulation. So if a local farmer has got his cows, they're out in pasture there, and they're going to the bathroom near the small pond by their house, you don't need to regulate that. That water doesn't lead anywhere else, and that's overregulation if you do it. And there are some real small farmers that are complaining about some of Obama administration's rules. But they are not the main people complaining. That is, of course, the front that is put out there. The main people who are upset are the massive polluters who want to be able to pollute upstream. So that's just that's just the water supply up there. That's not, you don't have to worry about it because it's not part of the main water supply in the main river. But it leads into the main river. Yeah. So if you do massive pollution upstream, it's going to go into all our water. Well, I mean, over-regulation.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're really going to regulate? I mean, where else would I put these pollutants? It would cost me a lot of money to move them. If I just dump them here in your river, you're going to regulate that now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we need to regulate to make sure you don't do that. So it is a fine line sometimes. Now, do you think Trump is going to draw that fine line with your best interests in mind?
And by the way, you gave the perfect example. They do talk about those ponds. They do talk about that cows. But the problem there isn't the regulation of the pond. It's what is being regulated from going into it. You can still say the pond needs to be regulated, just not from piss. You can't pour 1,000 gallons of benzene into the pond. How about that? Or nuclear waste, or runoff from coal, like a coal mining. You can still piss in it if you want to. You just can't do all those things. How about that? That's a compromise.
And so now there's a lot of smart articles and experts talking about how, well, since these laws are so complicated, you have to adjudicate a lot of these bodies of water one at a time. It'll take years, and then you have to justify it and go through this process. So it'll take years for Scott Pruitt, who is in favor of allowing more pollution and what he would call less regulation, so that you can dump those toxins in those waterways. It'll take him years to be able to do this. My guess is no.
Knock out the whole thing all at once.
No, they're just going to say, I'm not going through that process. I now say you can do it.
Yeah.
And people will be outraged for half a day, and then Trump will tweet about something else, and they'll go squirrel, and you're going to try to figure out bodies of water and the kind of benzene you should and shouldn't put in. No, they're just going to steamroll you, dude. I remember all the folks who said, at Standing Rock, there was an environmental impact statement. That takes years to do, and by law you must do it.
Killed it.
Yeah, and I said by law you have to do it because it is true. And they came in and they're like, oh, the law. That's so funny, the law. Right, environmental impact statement. Yeah, okay. You go ahead and drill right away. Yeah. And they just did it. And they'll do the same thing here.
Do we have time to read just a couple more of these?
Yes.
So in addition to trying to kill the waters of the United States rule, there's other ways that Trump is attacking the EPA and its ability to protect Americans just this week. So some details from plans that have come out. The plan is to slash EPA's staff from its current level of 15,000 to 12,000. Okay, if you really are worried about clean air and clean water, killing off 3,000 jobs at the EPA seems like a weird way to do that, but it goes beyond that. The proposal also dictates cutting the agency's grants to states, including its air and water programs, by 30%, and eliminating 38 separate programs in their entirety. We're not going to go through all of them, but here are a few. Programs designed for zero funding now include grants to clean up brownfields, which are abandoned industrial sites, a national electronic manifest system for hazardous waste, which gives us statistics that can then be studied and helps in tracking environmental pollutants, environmental justice programs. They oppose those probably because of the inclusion of the word justice, climate change initiatives, obviously, and funding for Alaskan Native villages. The agency's Office of Research and Development could face a cut of up to 42%. The document eliminates funding altogether for the office's contribution to the U.S. Global Change Research Program, which was set up back in 1989 by George H.W. Bush during a very different time for the Republican Party. And that's what's already happened, okay, or what's planned to happen. We have some speculation about things coming out of the Trump administration that could come out very soon. Trump is apparently likely to sign an executive order next week that lifts a ban on new federal coal mining leases and starts the process of killing other Obama-era initiatives to combat global climate change. A White House official said, rescinding federal coal leasing moratorium is part of the executive order, which has lots of different components, including the Clean Power Plan. Now, we talk about a lot of ways that Donald Trump can really kneecap the various efforts that Obama put into place specifically to deal with climate change. Many of these little changes don't have much to do with climate change, but there is nothing more singularly damaging to the global climate than coal emissions. And the idea that we're going to double down on coal when we've made so much progress as a species in switching from coal to other forms of energy, which are cleaner. I'm not even talking there about geothermal and wave energy and solar and all of that. Even natural gas is far cleaner. Coal is in a league of its own. And that's what they're going to double down on. They'll call it clean or they'll call it whatever, but this is their attempt to squeeze every penny out of the ground, to make every profit possible, even if it means eliminating our future as a species.
Now, if you're a right-winger, I get it. You don't like facts, so you don't want research, you don't want development. So when Trump says, I'm going to cut the research and development budget at the EPA by 42%, you're like, yes, less facts. I love it. God help us if we have facts so we would actually make correct decisions. So I understand that part. But really, you don't want industrial waste sites next to you and your family to be cleaned up? Now, let's look at priorities. He's going to add $54 billion to the defense budget. The defense budget already triples our second closest competitor. So we spend about 3 times as much as China does. So that's not a big enough lead. We spend 36% of the entire military budget of the world. But that's not a big enough lead. He has to add $54 billion on top. But the EPA, to clean up industrial waste next to you, $8 billion is too much. So he's going to cut a quarter of the money going to the EPA in order to save, what, $2 billion so that he could add $54 billion to defense spending. Now, is it because that defense spending is going to make us safer? No, it allows him to demagogue and so say, I alone can protect you.
Yeah.
And the second thing that it does is it gives money to the defense contractors who donate to Republican politicians. And if your kid's playing near an industrial waste site, too bad. You didn't give me a campaign donation, and neither did your kid. So I'm going to cut the hell out of the EPA that protects you, and I'm going to give giant, unbelievable contracts to the defense contractors who support me. And it's all about the priorities. So when they say they don't have money for the EPA, that is the biggest lie you have ever heard. They have plenty of money, just a question of where they put it. Okay, now we are massively out of time. All right, second hour coming up. First of all, everybody check out youtube.com/think tank. John and Hannah do a wonderful program there. And then in the next hour, they're now targeting specific immigrants, one by one. And if you make political statements against the Trump team and you're undocumented, they will literally remove you from the country. And when I said they will target their political opponents, and I said it from day one, people were like, no, Cenk, that's too speculative. No, political opponents, they're not going to do that. They have already begun. So we will explain when we come back.
Hi, I'm Brett Ehrlich with breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. Before we do breaking news with Brett Ehrlich, I'd like to do some vocal warm-ups. Ribbit! I pooped a sandwich. I pooped a sandwich. I'm ready.
Do you trust the establishment media?
The United States economy has never been better. Monetary policy is spectacular.
Everybody thought Jamie Dimon was the king of Wall Street last week. Well, it might be Ken Lewis now. He takes the crown. The best sales force out there is Merrill Lynch, and now it goes to BofA. It's pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing. Lewis now. Buying opportunity.
I do think this is a buying opportunity. We're going to see a stabilization and just a tremendous snapback.
The rally will be jaw-dropping.
The Occupy Wall Street movement is not a spontaneous protest against economic inequality.
This is what we mean by the establishment press.
It is a well-thought-out campaign.
To bring down the infrastructure of this country.
The embarrassment is that I'm given credibility in this world because of the disappointment that the public has in what the news media does.
I'm the former chairman of the Veterans Committee, and I learned a little bit about the cost of war. What the president is trying to do, and I agree with him, is to do everything that we can without going to war.
So what do you say to your critics? I'm talking about Democratic critics who say, you know what, he's really just a socialist pacifist.
I very rarely read in any coverage of Bernie that he's a socialist.
Bernie Sanders is a socialist, for God's sake.
Most analysts are saying that Hillary Clinton's going to win in a landslide.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
We've got Trump at 279, 259.
Wait a minute. No. Winning the presidency.
I know you don't believe that. Sorry to laugh. We're not going to be polite anymore. You know what we're going to do? We're going to fight back.
Fight for a free and independent media. We're done with politeness. We fight back.
We are going to put together the best investigative reporting team in the country.
You like Jordan Chariton in the field, challenging Democrats? He's the one that took down Donna Brazile. Thank God for that.
Give me 10 Jordan Charitons. Look at the damage I could do.
TYT will give you the four horsemen.
And we will let them gallop. Help unleash real journalism in the country.
We don't need anybody else anymore but you guys. TYTnetwork.com/go. This is going to be amazing.
Hey, Brett, get busy living. That's kind of from Bob Dylan, dude. But Dylan says get busy dying.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Oh, look at this. Grace Baldridge, Brett Ehrlich. Okay.
This is going to be fun.
Good luck, everyone.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely fun. Absolutely good luck. Buckle up. Brace for impact. Okay.
Gird up your loins.
Or that. So two tweets real quick. Ruth Iverson says, why don't these rich polluters realize they live on this planet too? And no, but to be fair, Ruth, the Koch brothers only have $40 billion apiece. They got to get to 41. Otherwise, how will they compete with the 8 other richest people in the country?
Yeah. And they live above this planet, slightly above. Most of their high rises and nice areas that they clean up around them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The
well,
air feels very nice up there.
Yeah.
That in the case of the Koch brothers, David Koch, that is literally true. He lives in a high rise on Park Avenue. And in fact, there was a whole movie made about his apartment building in Park Avenue. And then he does a wonderful job of taking care of New York. He, to be fair to him, contributes to the hospitals and mainly to the theater that he goes to. And so all the sophisticated people in New York are like, oh, I do declare, I went to the Lincoln Center. Oh, I mean, the Koch Center. I do adore the Kochs. I mean, the planet is melting. But still, we had a brilliant time at the opera earlier today.
La Boheme. They only get, it's a better opera the more silent letters it has in it.
Yes, Edwin. Oh, no, there it is. Okay, I had lost contact. Okay, Dan Grigori writes in, I love you guys for actually discussing America's water problems. Nobody else is. This is why independent media matters. Thank you, Dan. So appreciate it. TYTnetwork.com/go to support that independent media and hire more journalists. In fact, there it is. Oh, whoa, what is this? 1.320. We get to 1.5. You get more spectacular reporters and analysts. $10 given by Casper in Denmark.
Nice.
Yes. What? $27 from Noemi in California. That's also the name of Dave Kohler's mom, random fact.
No.
Yes. Amy.
Oh, I thought he was born from a cloud one day.
No, it's actually Noemi. And Joseph from Colorado gave $127. So thank you to all of you guys. We appreciate it. Look, I'm going to actually tell you one other part of the campaign now, which is fun, okay? So we're doing a campaign called I Am TYT. We did this last time. We did a fundraiser. You guys helped build the studio. In fact, you completely built it. We took the money that you gave and turned it into this. This is the Nick Wild chair. The cameras are named after some folks. We're still doing that for the tytnetwork.com/go fund. That's to hire more journalists, and you could participate in that. We would love it. But one of the other things we did last time we want to do this time around is show you guys and have you be our voice as well. So we're having you guys submit videos, and then if you tell us why you're TYT, why you like the idea of TYT, why you want to support it, and if we like your video, we'll put it in a compilation. And so sometimes when people ask us, what are we? Instead of showing me and Anna, Brett, Grace, and all these folks, we're going to show you guys. And so speak from the heart, whatever you got in terms of why you like the show or the idea and why you think that you're part of this movement And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'm going to leave it right there. And so it's hashtag IMTYT. That's the campaign. And so there's 3 arguably simple steps to submitting your video. Shoot your short video, maximum 1 minute, upload it to YouTube as an unlisted link, and then send an email to us at YIMTYT. That's the question why. YIMTYT at gmail.com, and include the link to your YouTube video, the one that's unlisted, the one you made, and then fill out the terms and conditions once we send you that after we get your video, because if you don't do that, we can't put the video up on air. So I loved it last time, and people gave great answers, and it energized us and made us feel like that's why we do the show, because that's what they got out of it. That's what we love. And there's not a lot of people doing IMCNN videos. So I want to hear from you guys, and we want to show you guys off, and we're super proud of you. Thank you for helping build the studio, helping us win every award we've ever won, for having the audience that we have. That's you guys, for making us the largest online news show. Thank you for helping us hire reporters who are breaking stories nonstop. And thank you for participating in this.
I like the YIMCNN. It's like, I'm CNN because I had a layover at an airport and it was on. CNN.
I wanted someone to read the news to me from a teleprompter without any emotion or showing that I care at all about the news.
Yeah.
I am CNN.
Yeah, I am CNN because I wanted to listen to Wolf Blitzer read like there was no punctuation.
I am MSNBC because I am totally confused as to who I am.
Oh.
I am a conservative in the morning, kind of a progressive at night, and in the middle.
That's the Sphinx riddle from
I know, right?
From Oedipus.
And I'm Fox News because I'm a blonde, hot, straight girl.
That's probably the most accurate one of all. And I make you remember 1955.
Oh, God.
Okay.
All
I
right.
believe we're going to get some interesting videos on this IMTYT campaign. Okay. All
Should
right.
we get into it?
Let's do it.
Okay. Daniela Vargas is a 22-year-old undocumented resident of Jackson, Mississippi, who is currently being detained by ICE. This comes after she spoke out against the detention, also by ICE, of her brother and her father. So let's take a look at some video of Daniela.
Today, my father and brother await deportation.
But moments later, 22-year-old Daniela Vargas was apparently targeted by ICE, getting pulled over after leaving the event with her friend.
2 vehicles zooming up behind you and turning on lights like inside of their car, like undercover like vehicles, and then rushing out and just being so rough.
So the detentions of her father and brother happened on February 15th, and then she spoke out this past Wednesday, and following that, she was detained. A little bit more about Vargas's story. Vargas emigrated to the United States from Argentina more than 15 years ago and was previously protected from deportation by Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. An Obama administration program offered temporary relief from deportation for younger immigrants brought to the United States by their parents. So she does have an attorney. Her attorney's name is Abby Peterson, and Abby says, quote, "It could be retaliation. They had been reading about her in the news. They had seen her at this press conference. Maybe they didn't want to hear it anymore. Maybe I'm mistaken on that, but common sense would certainly imply that's what happened." ICE has released a statement, and they have said, quote, "U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, took Daniela Vargas, 22, an unlawfully present Argentinian citizen, into custody March 1st during a targeted immigration enforcement action in Jackson, Mississippi." And then they concluded the statement. It goes on basically to say ICE does not conduct sweeps or raids that target aliens indiscriminately. And now the next step for Vargas is that she will be processed and face an immigration judge. Do you guys agree with what we're hearing from her attorney? Do you think that this is retaliation?
I love the attorney who's like, you know, this could be retaliation because she spoke out against the government and was instantly arrested for it. She's the kind of person who's like, so why are all these drops coming down from the sky? Well, it could be that it's raining.
Yeah.
Like, that is what happened.
So you don't think the wording is strong enough from her attorney?
I mean, she's an attorney. She's obviously got some kind of approach that she's trying to take. She has a strategy. But, like, this seems very on the nose to me, a little too on the nose.
Yeah, let me go way, way further. They are begun to target their political opponents.
Yeah.
So, and they're not actually hiding it. If you listen to what Grace read you from the ICE statement, They say, we do not, here, I'll quote again, ICE does not conduct sweeps or raids that target aliens indiscriminately. They say this was a part of a routine targeted enforcement operation. So they targeted her. We didn't say that, they said that. And just think about it logically for a second. So you're telling me ICE is like wandering around random states and they're like, which car can we pull over? Which car? I don't know, let's pull this one over and see what happens. Oh, look at that. There's a person in the car who was just giving a political speech against the administration, and she happens to be an undocumented immigrant.
Yeah.
What a break we caught.
And Jeg, to that point, the detentions that she was speaking out against to her father and her brother was from a raid by ICE on their home. So that's as targeted as it can get. They went into the Vargas' home to apprehend her father and brother.
Right, like they're saying we targeted her because she pissed us off. Like it's
They're
pretty much,
saying
yeah,
it.
that, like there's no between the lines.
Yeah. So, but okay, so she's undocumented, and some of you out there might think, well, she had it coming. She shouldn't have, when she was 7 years old and her parents were bringing her from Argentina, she should have been like, hey, mom, dad, I'm going to be the adult here and say we shouldn't go without papers. Okay. Or you think, I don't care that it wasn't her fault. I don't care that she didn't grow up in Argentina. She grew up here. And then in every other way, she's an American. I don't care. She's undocumented. She's got to go. Okay. I hear you. I don't agree with you, but I understand, right? But what you can't say is that they're not targeting their opponents because they just told you they're targeting their opponents. So she was targeted because she was going around making speeches about how this is a bad policy proposal. They didn't pick her out of thin air. Like they said themselves, it was not indiscriminate. It was to discriminate. It was to target her. So you make speeches against against the Trump administration, and if they got any reason, in this case she's undocumented, you're gone. They're going to kick you out of the country. Now, if you're over-the-top right-winger or a 15-year-old troll, you're probably giddy about that. Like, finally, an authoritarian regime, right? But for the rest of us, that is deeply, deeply disturbing and un-American.
Yeah, and there's that. If you go back to what Trump's been kind of signaling in his speeches, he said that we're going to go after the bad dudes and not the good guys. And so if he's going after, Daniela Vargas, it seems like what they're saying is true. He's like, we're going after her because she's a bad dude. And it's like the only thing she's done is like messed up her paperwork in her DACA renewal. Like that's what she's doing. She owes $475. And is that their definition of bad dudes? Are they expanding it to people who are like bad at releasing paperwork? Because it seems like you guys are also really bad at releasing paperwork too.
And also just to that degree in the press conference, she is she speaks very highly of the government. She's a self-described dreamer. She wants to become a math professor. Like this is not, if we're taking out the bad dudes, she is not one of them. There's nothing aside from, I guess, an outstanding ticket for her to be considered a bad dude. It's just absolutely shameless what's happening to her.
And by the way, the paperwork, that sounds like regulation. That sounds like over-regulation, doesn't it? So
she's being saddled by regulation.
So now they sent mixed messages on whether they're targeting just people who have committed felonies or misdemeanors or whatever. But now they're not. No, if you're undocumented, so that whole idea of rounding up 10, 11 million people, yeah, one at a time. But first they start with people who are their political opponents, and then they'll work to see, because now there's no standard anymore. It's not a felony, it's not a misdemeanor. They're saying if you're undocumented, that is by definition a crime, so we're going to round you all up. And by the way, so that's the undocumented immigrants. And again, I know some of you have no sympathy because you think, oh, if they don't have papers, they're not humans like me. Whatever, okay, we can disagree on that. What if you're a political opponent of Donald Trump and you broke some other law? And jaywalking, or you were speeding, or you had 2 beers instead of 1, or you name it, 1,000 other things, or you didn't pay your taxes quite exactly right. I mean, Donald Trump is one to complain, right? But any violation, they've just signaled to you, if you're a political opponent, by the way, either on the left or the right, and there are plenty of opponents on the right for Donald Trump, we just told you we round up our opponents.
Right. Even the process of saying bad dudes, there's been criticism of ICE because what they've been able to do frequently is just kind of label someone a gang member And folks follow up and say, what is the process? Like, what is your backup for saying someone's a gang member? And they just don't have to present anything. They can just, having said, as ICE, this person's a gang member in absence of any other, it's like a get into jail free card is when they label someone as a gang member. And they've been doing that with folks. And it's really tough. So it's this very slippery thing that we've been trying to pin down as to what constitutes a bad dude that they're going after. And then you see a quote like this that sounds so Trumpian. ICE does not conduct sweeps or raids that target aliens indiscriminately. It's like that weird circular logic. It's like they're aliens, so I can't be indiscriminate. I can discriminate against them because they're aliens.
Yeah, and I don't want you to get me wrong. I don't mean they're going to, if you were jaywalking or you broke any kind of minor law, they're going to throw you out of the country. They can't do that if you're a U.S. citizen. But they can put you in jail. It's called selective enforcement. So if you're a Trump ally and you're jaywalking, you're fine. Nobody's going to bother you. But if you're a Trump opponent and you're undocumented, you're thrown out of the country. If you're a Trump opponent and you have a misdemeanor, maybe as a Trump ally, you wouldn't be prosecuted. As a Trump opponent, we're going to throw the book at you and try to get you in jail as much as possible because we don't like people speaking out against us. Look at what we just did to that girl right there. She spoke out against us, and we arrested her immediately after the speech and threw her out of the country.
Trumped up charges. Hashtag.
All right. Forward. A Tibetan women's soccer team has been denied U.S. visas so they could let me take that back. That's not what happened. A Tibetan women's soccer team has been denied U.S. visas for their participation in a soccer tournament in Texas. So a little bit more about what's going on. The team, Tibet Women's Soccer, had planned to take part in the spring's Dallas Cup tournament for young players and was invited by organizers to stay with local players in the tradition of several previous diversity programs. Something worth noting about this specific tournament is that it is a boys soccer tournament and they were invited as VIP guests, again as a showing of diversity, which is something that this tournament takes very seriously. The team captain, Jermaine Chatso, says, quote, "What they said is we don't have strong reasons to go to Dallas, but I think this is not the reason for them to reject us. We think the reason is they think we might run away when we reach there." Their coach is from New Jersey. Her name is Cassie Childers, and she has said that the experience left her feeling disgusted and ashamed of my country, noting that it cost the team $3,520, half of its yearly budget, plus travel expenses simply to apply. They weren't trying to immigrate, she says. They were trying to play soccer. For their part, the White House has not commented. The State Department said it could not comment on individual visa applications and did not immediately have a response about the White House's policy towards Tibet. Now, this hasn't been the first time that players have been denied entry or had trouble getting to Dallas. There have been other players that have been denied before, but worth noting is that not to this volume. An entire team has not been denied visas before, so that's why this has become such a news story.
So they actually love America. They said this is our only chance to represent our country in the greatest country on earth. And I get why. I mean, first of all, I love the country, but why do they love it? They don't even live here. Well, look at this Dallas Cup tournament that they got invited to. It's for young players. They have a Muslim Jewish team from Israel that comes in. Mm-hmm. They have a Catholic Protestant team from Ireland that comes in. They're bringing this Tibetan team. See, that's why people love us. For the ones that do. And for them, we've been a beacon of hope and opportunity and bringing people together. In their neck of the woods, they might be judged for being Tibetan and hence not have rights. But they look here and they go, look, that's the Muslim and Jewish team from Israel playing together, and America welcomes that, and they bring Protestants and Catholics together, and they don't care that we're Tibetans. Now the message we send them is, oh no, we're just kidding. We really care about your ethnicity. And so if you're from Tibet, whether it's because of political situation with China, whatever it is, no, we now are not welcoming, and we're not the country you thought we were.
Don't agree. Can you imagine the fallout in America if these 15 Tibetan soccer players are allowed to go to a soccer tournament? And not just that, I read their itinerary. They also plan to go to Six Flags. Six Flags!
And a Dallas Mavericks game.
What's that?
And a Dallas Mavericks
I didn't
game.
even know about that. I'm going to leave. I'm going to enlist. something.
I think it's a 6 false flag operation.
I love what the screening process must have been. It's like says here, one time you used your hands during a game. Rule breaker. Stay in Tibet.
So the only thing that I would say about this is that they said that the U.S. Embassy officials said they did not have a strong enough reason to go to Dallas. And the only reason that I can see to that degree is that they're not competing in the tournament. They're not even in the age group. The age group is 16 and under, and it's a boys soccer tournament, and they are not participating. It's more like VIP guests, which I know that it's really important for this specific tournament to celebrate diversity. So to that degree, yeah, I think it's great. But I do also understand why the U.S. Embassy was asking, you're not even going to be playing? I mean, I guess they're doing like scrimmages and they're going to be participating with other teams, and it's way more of a symbolic gesture than it is for the specific, we want the gold. But I do see that there is cause for them to ask questions about their visit.
Right. Yeah, they can do that. I get it. But it's just like no one would care if they came here and were in the parade. You know?
The reason why this is a story is because they were denied visas.
Yeah.
If they had been granted visas, we wouldn't be talking about it.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Well, Grace, if you love Trump so much, why don't you marry him?
I get it. Like,
I mean, he has like lesbian haircuts, so maybe.
There's I didn't say it. Go back to her.
Okay.
Go back to her.
Okay. So, no, look, here's so this is not part of the Muslim travel ban or anything like that. Although, of course, I'm sure there's some folks out there who are Trump supporters like, well, you can't have like those dangerous Muslims from Tibet coming in. They're not Muslims. Okay. And a lot of them are citizens of India. So then you're like, wait a minute, now are we banning Indians and citizens of Nepal? What in the world's going on here? Now, you can deny visas. Visas have been denied in the past. That's why you apply. By the way, per person, it costs them $160. And that's a ton of money for them, a ton of money. They spend $3,520, which is half their yearly budget to just apply, not to come here, not the plane tickets, not all that, just to apply for a visa. So yes, we are within our rights to reject any young people who believe in our country from coming here. Okay, if we had specific actionable intelligence, hey, we found out they're looking to defect, they're gonna come here and they're gonna stay. Okay, I get it, and that's why you go through an application process. But it goes to, who are we? If we're the kind of people who reject these folks, why, and what does that say about us? And so, yes, they can do it. What we're saying is they shouldn't. What made America great was that we were open to folks like this.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see like the way that geopolitics plays out through sports. Because like if you look at, the Taiwanese teams, like there is an entirely different flag that, Chinese Taipei they're called, because of a very long drawn out process to figure out exactly what to call them so they can still compete representing the island but still not pissing off China. And so I see all that playing out. But I mean, there has to be a point where we all can kind of sit down, look at each other across the table and be like, let them go to the parade. They're on vacation. Let them have a vacation.
Yeah, and what the story comes back to for me is their young coach saying they weren't trying to immigrate, they were trying to play soccer. And I think that that's what the crux of this story is. Whether or not they were participating in the tournament, they weren't coming here to start a new life. This to them was their dream. They were saying this was going to be the trip of a lifetime. Again, we talked about their itinerary, sounded like a grand time. And they're still speak so highly of the United States as the greatest country on earth, even though they're no longer going to be able to realize this dream that they had of coming here. I will say good news is that they have either a GoFundMe or an Indiegogo. I can never reconcile the difference between the two. That has raised the funds that they lost in getting these visas. So that's good, and I know that they're planning on doing another trip throughout India and participating through that. So at least there's a silver lining here.
Yeah. So we'll put that link wherever this video is. Hopefully, if we find it. So last thing is, Brett might be right. It might be that they are, Donald Trump didn't know what the hell he was doing and messed up the one China policy when he called Taiwan, because Bob Dole gets paid by Taiwan. And Bob Dole's like, here, Donald, put Taiwan's on the line. Oh, okay, I like you guys. Oh, you like me? Then you're fantastic. You're the best. You're fantastic. You're tremendous, right? And so this might be a way of saying to China, hey, listen, sorry about the Taiwan thing, but don't worry, we found these 15 young Tibetan women and we're going to kick their ass. Okay, so That's what might have happened here. Mission accomplished.
Yeah. Got him.
Okay, let's go forward.
Facebook is testing out new AI software that will help prevent suicidal users from carrying out a plan. So let me tell you a little bit about the threefold approach that they're taking. One, they're using pattern recognition. It will check posts and then, if needed, make suicide or self-injury reporting options more prominent. The AI detection and reporting options, whether aided by friends or Facebook employees, are running as a limited test in the US for now. And then the second thing that they're rolling out is Facebook has also created a new messenger tools in collaboration with the Crisis Text Line, the National Eating Disorder Association, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and other organizations that'll help at-risk users or concerned friends contact knowledgeable groups over chat, either directly from the organization's page or via Facebook's suicide prevention tools. And then lastly, the third thing is if users see a troubling live stream, so this is for Facebook Live specifically, they can reach out directly to the person and report it to Facebook at the same time as shown above. It will also provide resources to the person reporting the live video to assist them in helping their friend. I think this is really awesome that they're rolling out this technology, because we've talked about this before on Pop Trigger, Brett, where we see a lot of these Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, the live stream technology can be abusive and it can be abused by either people in the comment section or people that are feeling particularly lonely or vulnerable will go there seeking a connection. And sometimes it's hard to find a tangible connection. You're talking to people, but it's not really, and there's a chat. And I think that this is good in helping people who are feeling lonely and isolated get the help that they need. I wonder how it's going to work with AI technology, though, and we'll see how the rollout goes, because I've been sad before, and I wonder what the intention is going behind here. Like, how is it going to test out exactly what language is definitely suicidal and what language is just, your standard depressed grace language? I don't know.
Yeah. It's a little disconcerting if Facebook's like, "Are you okay, buddy?"
What are the flags exactly?
Yeah. I'm sure that they are collecting information on you all the time when you're using that. And everyone that I've met over at Facebook seems to be it's not the evil company. It seems like the people that are in charge of rolling out this stuff. This is heartening as opposed to disheartening. It seems optimistic as opposed to pessimistic. It seems like the kind of thing, at least it seems like they're trying to use their technology for good to help people, and I can't find a problem with that. I think watching the rollout, like what specific things are they looking for when you encounter a company that these companies use trial and error as a way to fortify their system. It learns off of making mistakes and finding successes. So, I mean, the intention seems great, and I hope that it is a successful program because that goal sounds like a good one.
Yeah, so in these stories, the online community is always super skeptical, and they're like, what's the real plan here? So they find out who's depressed, obviously sell them Xanax. Super obvious. No, I'm kidding. And here, I'm a little bothered by them judging my moods too much, right? Now, I'm not a depressed dude, so I don't know. What's the thing that's a downer? Maybe they'll sell me that, or it's a
right.
Yeah, it's a
seems like you're too happy.
Yeah,
let's fix that.
Hotline for this guy's are like annoying the rest of us by being so damn happy.
Yeah.
So reporting people based on their, it's going to create some issues, no question, right? They're going to over-report, and the algorithm is going to pick out people who aren't actually suicidal, and then that'll become news stories. But overall, I agree with you guys. I think they're trying to do the right thing, and I think that it might actually be helpful and maybe even save a couple of lives. And so what I'm saying is they'll be imperfect, so cut them a little bit of slack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then if it turns out it's a debacle and they're just, Grace was in the mood for a little bit of red wine and chill out at home,
or someone
every night.
Yeah. These are cynicism tests for me, like to find out how cynical I am reading an article. Like for this, when I read this, there's part of me that just wants to be like, Facebook using it, if you use it long enough, it makes everybody a little suicidal. If they really want to help society, what they'll do is after enough time using Facebook, they'll kick you off Facebook for a while. There's a ton of ways we can improve people's lives, but if I'm having a good day, I'll read this and I'll say, you know what, that's great. Great job, Facebook. Way to look out for people.
And social media has just become such a community hub for so many people with people that they haven't met in person before. And so what I like about this is the outreach from the friends. I am hesitant about the outreach from the corporation, from the company, and how that's going to be regulated, and we'll see how that rolls out. But I do like involving friends, even people that you chat with and people that you communicate with regularly on Facebook or on Twitter, when they notice sort of bizarre behaviors. I've noticed bizarre sort of uploads from friends of mine before, and I've wanted to reach out to them. And it's nice that Facebook is saying you should do that. We should be able to talk about this. If you think that a friend of yours is struggling with suicide or is struggling with mental health, then let us help you, give you the tools to help that friend.
And it definitely seems like a company trying to address certain problems that have just arisen by around the nature of the services they provide online. Because something that Facebook has done, without question, is allowed people to be really, really mean to you all the time without you really necessarily being able to figure out who they are. When you're doing Facebook Lives, people go out there, young, impressionable kids are out there trying to share their innermost thoughts because this seems like the kind of forum for that. And some of their friends have had success doing that, and random people just show up and tear them down. Facebook seems to have acknowledged that there are ways that their products can open folks up to dangers, and they're trying to address that. And I think that's really good. And the flagging procedure, a lot of folks have problems with flagging procedures no matter what platform it's on. They're asking questions like, well, why are you policing? This is a tool, let it go, let people use it the way they want. But I think Facebook's been pretty responsible in the way they have allowed you to flag things, but that doesn't mean they disappear. Mm-hmm. They go under review. There are processes put in place behind the scenes at Facebook as well as through third parties that allow it to be properly vetted to find out if the kinds of things that are being flagged are actually dangerous and nefarious or what have you.
I think Facebook should build a kickball algorithm. When you've spent too much time online, as Brett was alluding to, they're like, you must now go out and play kickball with real human beings. Please leave your computer.
And locate 12 other people to play kickball with you.
Do people still play kickball?
No.
Is that a thing that happens?
No. What is, maybe if you're a 12-year-old at recess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I would play kickball, but no one's invited me to.
As recently as 5 years ago, there were kickball leagues run by hipsters. They had the best time.
Really?
What?
Yeah. All around Silver Lake. They had, you'd have names like the Echo Park, like whatevers.
Jacory says he's in one.
Jacory's in one. That happens.
Of
People
course
do this all the time.
Of course he's. Of course there's a guy who works at TYT who's in a kickball league. Of course. Okay.
Hey, you guys want to go down and play kickball?
Yeah.
All right. Next TYT campaign event. No. Office party. Kickball for everybody.
Oh, you're all about to get beat. I'm going to be so good. I'll train.
Okay, we got to take a quick break, guys. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, among the stories we have to dazzle you with, how can you find out if your wife or girlfriend is cheating on you? There's apparently an excellent way to find out. Come right back.
Yeah.
Welcome to your Friday postgame. Woo! Except it's currently midday on Thursday.
Are you gonna fire me?
Sometimes I'm being a dick. Back in 2005, we almost went under, but members rescued us.
Once their only method of success is going the athletic route, it tends to be the more preferred way to treat your body.
Nothing good in the world is ever happening.
Strong army that all they want to do is fight.
It's totally bullshit.
Don't do drugs and don't shoot people.
TYT is all in a good mood today.
I know I'm a weirdo if I read books, but fuck people.
I have a stack of papers here. Believe it or not, this is how Cenk used to be when he did the radio show.
Wait till you see these huge things.
I'm gonna go with your tricep. Size, very impressive.
The quads.
That's for the members. That's in the post game. Together, we're too strong.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
And super important, what's the name of this song? Do, 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 do. Go. All right, we got a lot more for you guys. We got tweets, we got things, we got stories. Libby writes in, yay, Grace Ballridge. Rocking the news again. Straight, blonde, white female news anchors can suck it. That's what Libby said. Don't put it on me. I'm a derpy panda writes in, this is America. If you're the wrong skin color, then you're bad by definition. Interesting. Jimmy Brandon says, if they're already going after undocumented immigrants that are their political opponents, who's to say they won't come for you? Well, Jimmy, obviously, I totally agree with you. And in fact, we just got an update from Edwin, stage manager / breaking news expert. And it turns out for Daniela Vargas, they are expediting her extradition, and they are not, apparently, according to Huffington Post, they're not going to give her a hearing. They're just going to immediately kick her out of the country.
Argentina.
So this is the new America, and you wonder why we say fascism. Okay, let's go get, yeah. All right, let's hire more journalists. So these are the folks who've helped us recently. $27 from Beverly in Iowa, $27 from Hosea in Arkansas. That's an awesome old school name. And $127 from Robinson in Florida. Thank you, guys. Let me see where we are with tytnetwork.com/go. Okay. 321 there. Fantastic, guys. And post-game show coming up as well. Sorry, a little bit of cough.
Get it out, get it out.
And we got Aggressive Progressive tonight at 9 o'clock. You guys know the first segment of Aggressive Progressive is free and live to everybody, so make sure you check that out. And the whole show's for members. Excuse me, guys. Francisco Flores and Jay Sherwood are our members of the day. All right, what's next?
All right. 7 Baltimore police officers have been arrested on racketeering charges. So they are accused of an abuse of power and also from stealing from victims. U.S. Attorney General Rod J. Rosenstein is talking about this. They are 6 detectives and a sergeant on the city's gun trace task force team. He says, quote, what is particularly significant about the allegations in this indictment is that these officers were involved in stopping people who had not committed crimes, not only seizing their money, but pocketing it. And then when I was referencing abuse of power earlier, this is what I'm talking about. Some of the alleged overtime abuses included one officer who claimed overtime for a day of gambling at a casino. Another officer was paid while vacationing in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for a week. So there's a lot of gross misconduct going on here. A little bit about the investigation. The investigation stemmed from a drug probe conducted by the Drug Enforcement Administration. Baltimore Police Commissioner Kevin Davis said it was a difficult day for the city and a punch in the gut for his police force. But he said such crackdowns are part of change and would be applauded by his officers. To give you guys a little bit of context about the Baltimore Police Department and why there's such scrutiny on them, the overhaul stems from a scathing federal report on police operations issued after the widely publicized death of Freddie Gray, which I know we talked about here, in April 2015 while in police custody. So this has really come as a shock for the Baltimore Police Department, but I want to get a reaction from you guys. Were you shocked to hear about this?
It's the least shocking thing I've ever heard in my life. Oh, there's...
How do you think it's being handled, though?
Yeah.
I think it was in The Wire.
Yeah. There's corrupt cops in Baltimore. Huh. Well, that's interesting news. So, look, it's actually great news because the Justice Department did an investigation of the cops in Baltimore. At the time, you remember, conservatives were dismayed by that. They're like, oh, they just won't let the cops be cops. You know, just let them do what they got to do, and you're all over them, and you're investigating them, okay? And then they can't do real policing. And you remember at the time there was all these talking points about, oh, crime is going up because they won't let the cops do their jobs. No, they were seeing if there's any crooked cops. And so it turns out when they did an investigation, they found them. Now, these guys would pull over totally innocent people in Baltimore and would rob them. Literally, they'd be like, okay, I'm seizing your assets. They're like, why? There's no drugs on me. I didn't do anything wrong. Shut up. It doesn't matter. I'm taking it. They took from a couple $100. In one case, apparently they took $200,000. By the way, you're going to get caught if you take $200,000.
Who's going to catch you, the police?
But that's why they do it.
Yeah.
And if you never investigate the cops, they get away with it. Now, as long as they're targeting people without much power, and most of the time it was people with almost no power. They did get away with it, and that's why they knew they could get away with it. But then they did stupid stuff that everybody's annoyed at. Going gambling and then charging the department, going to Myrtle Beach and, for a whole week and charging the department. Well, even the department gets annoyed at that. So then that's, I guarantee you, part of the reason that they got busted. So
yeah, and one of the worst offenders with regards to overtime pay, his salary was $85,000, and he received more than $83,000 in addition because of this false overtime pay that he was, that he received, which is, to me, just the gall to do this. It's absolutely shameless. I can't believe what I'm reading, the numbers here, because it's so much money, Cenk. That's what I couldn't believe.
But you know why, Grace? Because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And if you never do oversight of the cops, they will rob people blind, literally. And I'm telling you, one of the reasons they got caught is because you can rob powerless people all day long. But when they do the overtime trick, they're also robbing from the police department. So then the rest of the cops are like, maybe you crossed the line there. And even so, they've been doing this for a long time, and Baltimore never did anything about it until the U.S. Justice Department came in and did this investigation.
Yeah, this is what oversight does. This is what oversight is necessary to do. This is why you need you need watchdogs, you need folks to look after to make sure that these kinds of things don't happen. And when they do, you need to prosecute them. We're just looking for the bad dudes who are the police officers. The good ones, we're fine with the good dudes. We're trying to find the bad dudes. They're found. And listen, if the oversight's there and they don't find anything, great for you. But you need this kind of stuff. In the first hour, talking about the EPA having people there to look and make sure that we're protecting citizens. This is what this is for. And when folks say the government's overreaching and there's too much regulation and red tape to go through, we're not trying to stop you from doing things you should be doing. We're trying to stop you from doing things you shouldn't be doing because they're bad for people. And this is the kind of stuff that everyone should be focused on. And I'm glad that they caught these people who are doing bad things.
And also, I'm also glad that the police commissioner, Kevin Davis, has said that this is a good thing that happened, and that if you are a good cop in the Baltimore Police Department, you will celebrate the actions that the DEA then passed on to the FBI and then was also carried out with local officials. So I think that is the silver lining here, is that from the highest order, you have the guy saying, no, what they did was correct. These were disgraceful cops. They should not be in our department.
Yeah.
So they also realized, in the midst of this investigation, studied the zero tolerance policy that the cops had in Baltimore for the community. Now, they had zero tolerance for anyone doing anything wrong in the community, which, by the way, they found out after studying it, it had almost no impact on crime. So they're like, oh, we're getting tough and we got no tolerance for anything. Ah! And then did your crime rates go down? No. We just made ourselves feel better by doing this stupid zero tolerance policy, which robs you of any kind of human judgment. But for the cops themselves, they apparently had very high tolerance. Like, oh, you can go to Myrtle Beach and you can go gambling and you can rob that guy and you can rob that guy. All right, now you robbed too many guys. Fine. After 18 tolerance, we're finally going to come, and after the federal government gets involved, finally come get you. One of the guys' names was G Money Gondo. Gee, I wonder if G Money had cared about money. And, I'm not saying a nickname is end all be all, but what these guys were doing was obvious, and it still took the federal government getting involved before the cops would regulate themselves.
I'm fine saying, I'm shocked to find out that there's bad people in the police force. I don't care about going into it. Hear my idea that I don't even need to push an agenda that says, police can be corrupt. I don't even need to start there. I'm fine with stories like this to come up that say we were doing an investigation to make sure everything was okay. We found that there was something wrong. We're going through the process of justice. If we can apply things like investigate, base it on evidence, go through the process of justice and make sure that it's a just process, that's fine. I think we should apply that to the police force. I think we should apply that to everything, because I think if we're able to deal in empirical processes like that, then we're going to get out of a lot of these back and forth struggles that are really bogging folks down.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine anybody could disagree with that. But it is the internet. Someone will find a way to disagree with Brett.
Yeah. I watched The Wire. There's good cops in The Wire. And what I think they should do next in Baltimore is set up a safe zone where everyone can do drugs safely, because that worked for at least 6 episodes that season.
And by the way, we have a good cop from Baltimore on the show tomorrow, Michael Wood, retired Baltimore police officer. He is also one of the guys who started Veterans for Standing Rock. So yes, there are definitely good cops. In fact, the two biggest heroes that are police officers that I know the stories of are both former Baltimore police officers. Michael Wood's retired, but Joe is down in Florida as a cop. In fact, he was part of Rick Scott's security detail, and I ran into him at the RNC. It was kind of surreal. Wow. He's the cop in Baltimore who turned in other cops that were beating the living crap out of a defendant. And now, that story doesn't speak that well of Baltimore because the rest of the cops ganged up on him, would leave dead rats on his car, threaten his life. That's why he had to go down to Florida. But he was a great guy, and he was a Baltimore cop.
Yeah.
And that Facebook algorithm story, by the way, you got to check out the interview I did with Ramesh Srinivasan. He's a associate professor at UCLA, and he wrote a book about Facebook algorithms and YouTube and Google algorithms. 1.8 billion people out of the 7 billion people on Earth use Facebook, and there's never been more powerful entities in the history of the world than Facebook and Google. They both have about 2 billion people that use them. So the assumptions that go into those algorithms, which then determine so much of the information we get, the behavior we have, the friends we have, the power they have there is amazing. Really interesting interview. That's at youtube.com/TYT interviews. Okay, let's keep going.
All right. Michigan has a law in the books that says that it is legal for a police officer to have sex with a prostitute and receive immunity during an investigation, but a new bill is proposing to ban that law. So Bridget Carr is a director of the Human Trafficking Clinic at the University of Michigan Law School, and she is now working with Michigan Representative Gary Glenn to draft a bill to get rid of the law. She says, quote, "The reason the law is structured the way it is because of the way the prostitution laws are written. So for law enforcement to have any power to investigate with immunity, they got all the power, and no one thought to go back and carve out a prohibition against sexual intercourse." She goes on, "It's not rampant, but it happens. And I think it says something about us as a community that we would allow this type of exemption for law enforcement, whether it's used very often or not." So as far as I've been able to research, Michigan is the only state that has this law on the books. And Bridget Carr was made aware of the law when she heard that Hawaii was phasing out this exemption. To me, this story comes back to sort of broad and vague wording in a law, not being very precise when they're writing it up. I don't think that it was with the intention of allowing police officers to have sex with prostitutes for immunity, but that is, as a result, what has happened or what could happen.
Well, it apparently has happened a number of times. That's why they were acknowledging it. So this is another great example of one set of rules for you guys, another set of rules for us. Now, some of it might make sense. Hey, listen, you don't get to carry around a badge and a gun and get to pull it on people, and cops do because that's their job, right? But really, you're going to say, I mean, you don't get to have sex with prostitutes, but of course cops get to have sex with hookers. That's their job. Is it? No, I don't think it has anything to do with their job. It just, every once in a while, they want to have sex with hookers before they arrested them.
Yeah, I get it. I get you're like, listen, when I'm undercover, I need to maintain my cover. I can't, in the middle of a human trafficking sting, say, oh no, I'm not gonna sleep with you. And then they'll be like, oh, you're obviously a cop. But I just think like, in the process, you should be a better cop than to have to be like, nah, I had to sleep with her, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, you could say, well, I was undercover with these terrorists and I had to blow up a building, otherwise they would have realized I was a cop. I mean, 13 people died, but I mean, what could I do? They would have made me.
Right.
Right? Like, yeah, no, being an undercover cop is super tough. You're not allowed to do the coke with them. You're not allowed to have sex with hookers with them.
Every prostitution scene I see on Cops is like just when they exchange the money, then they go in. It's not like they exchange the money, they have sex, and then while the guy's like, all right, that was great. Can we arrest her, please? Because I don't actually have the money for that.
Yeah, no, by the way, that we covered a story like that earlier on the show because there are these laws, Michigan and Hawaii, like you said, and sometimes cops would go in, they'd have sex with the hookers, and then they'd arrest them.
Yeah,
what the hell? That's crazy. That's not any undercover investigation. You just want to have sex with them. If you're investigating human trafficking, I think prostitution should be legal. So I think it's not that cops shouldn't be allowed to do it, it's that we should all be allowed to do it, right? But if you're investigating human trafficking as opposed to just run-of-the-mill prostitution, and you're like, well, I was worried about these kids that are being trafficked, so I had to have sex with them. What? What?
Right.
That's even worse.
Like, do you really need to
Right.
test the merchandise like that? Because then you're reducing this person whose life is already hell to like now I just. Ugh, it makes me feel gross.
Well, I know that the incidences that you guys are speaking of are true and valid, but I think that it's worth pointing out that many of the officers that she spoke with were unaware that this law was on the books. So it's not something that is taught in police academies, like, just so you know, you guys can totally have sex with them. But it still is something that they need to re-examine. And what my hope would be moving forward with the bill is that not only do they ban this law, but they also look back at the wording with regards to human trafficking and protections for prostitutes and sex workers, because I think that the United States is really far behind protections for people who work in the sex industry, and that's not okay because everyone is a person. It's human decency here, and so I'm hoping that that's what we can see, and then I'm also hoping that now Michigan will, roll back this law. I can't imagine what the campaign ads for, the people who want the law to stay in place, how would that look on local access Michigan TV? Just say no so I can say yes. Like, what? No.
Maybe they run old episodes of TJ Hooker.
Yeah, right. It's just hanging on to the top.
Yeah. No, not that kind of hooker. Okay.
All right. Last story on cheating and orgasm.
Love this.
You're welcome. You're welcome, everyone. I'm not really sure how to intro this.
Just fake it till you make it.
Sure. So, are you going to cheat on your partner? Well, if you are a woman who is faking orgasms, according to a new study, you are a little bit more likely to be unfaithful. So, this research comes from the Human Female Orgasm as Evolved Signal. This is a study. And what they conclude is that the more frequently a woman fakes orgasms, the more likely she is to cheat. What is going on here? So, researchers recruited a group of 138 females and 121 male college students, this demographic is very important, who were involved in heterosexual relationships. Women were quizzed on how intense and frequent their orgasms were, and the men were asked about how often they thought their girlfriends reached orgasm. All participants were also asked whether they had ever cheated on their partner and how likely they were to cheat in the future. Authors of the Human Female Orgasm as Evolved Signal study wrote, quote, fake orgasm was associated with female sexual infidelity and lower male relationship satisfaction. But the good news is that there is actually no link between a genuine orgasm and fidelity within women. So it's really just if you fake it. And also within the 138 women that reported in this study. And they were all of college age, which I do think is relevant when we come to a conclusion here.
So I like that you frame that as good news. So if your partner is not having very many orgasms, don't sweat it. She's not likely to cheat on you.
Right.
Right. If she's just bothering to fake the orgasms, watch out.
If she gives, it's weird because you give enough of a damn about him and his confidence to fake the orgasm, but not to stay with him. So but you're still stepping out. Like I care. Yeah, you just don't really care about a genuine interaction with that person. That's what it is. You don't care about. We covered this on Pop Trigger. You're not communicating well in the relationship. You're not communicating well in the bedroom. You're like, all right, it's too much of a pain in the ass to actually talk to this person, or it's too awkward to have that conversation that results in like constructive criticisms that lead to better sex. You're like, all right, I'm gonna fake it now, and I'm just gonna go get mine when the door's closed. Which might be a healthy approach.
So my conclusion to this small sample size is that if you are not physically connecting with someone, let's say in the way of an orgasm, then you are less likely to emotionally connect with them in the way where you wouldn't want to cheat on them, where you care, that deep connection that you feel when you are both sexually connected with someone and you guys are like hitting on all cylinders. Does that work? Sure.
Yeah.
Or when you are, and you are also
that's a straight
emotionally
person metaphor.
connected and you are communicating, that bond is just not as strong when the sexual and physical connection is not there, then the emotional tie will also not be there. That's what I think from this study.
Yeah, not buying it.
What are you not buying, Jenk?
Yeah, because it's totally depends on your perspective. Because as a straight male, especially in relationships before I got married, the sex and the enjoyment of it was not at all connected to my emotional status with that person. I wasn't like
Good.
I couldn't stare deeply enough into your eyes.
Oh no, I meant
so I'm
specifically.
not going to make it tonight.
I meant specifically for women, for the women question.
Okay,
I think
all
that
right.
for women, the emotional, what I would discern from the study, the emotional tie plays a major important, like if they are physically connected to someone with an orgasm, then they will be more connected with someone emotionally as well. But I think it's
that's
very
interesting.
different.
But I
with
don't know if
straight
it's.
men.
But I also don't know if it's the reverse. That if they have to have some sort of emotional connection to them in order to orgasm, that might not be the case at all.
Yeah.
He might be a hot guy and they're into it, and then they're like, yeah, but he's a schmuck. And
then
you know.
also, question for you guys, what do you think is the relevance that these are all college-age heterosexual couples? Because that demographic for me is very interesting. Because I think
right.
when you're college age, you are more inclined to sort of want to play the field. I think it'd be interesting if they carried out the study between like 18 and 24-year-olds, and then 35 to 40-year-olds, and seen if there was still that correlation.
But there's kind of a control for it because it's just the difference between someone who's faking it and someone who's not. It's not that like, it's not like, yeah, sure, more college-age people might be more inclined to cheat, but still the ones who are faking orgasms are more likely to cheat than the ones who are not faking orgasms within that group.
So I would say, I think that when you get older, I hope you are more comfortable with your body. Was that appropriate
That was it. That's
for
how
the
you
sex
do it.
story?
Daughter of a preacher man doesn't know how to
there
cross
you go.
himself or was afraid to in this sex talk discussion.
In the sex talk. Hey, Dad. So I think that when you get older, when women get older and they discover their bodies a little bit more, because a woman's orgasm, a woman's sexuality is way more complicated than a guy's. Like, you have to figure it out. Is it like, are you clitoral stimulation or internal stimulation? That
I am not familiar with either
Okay,
of those
well,
terms.
I'm just saying that it varies. It's not as simple as just like a pull and a tug. I've never touched a penis, so I'm just assuming that's what happens. But I think that when a woman gets older, that she's more comfortable to ask and communicate with what she wants, what works for her, and she has that experience of what works for her. So maybe I wonder if orgasms are faked less, but we don't have the numbers here to see if that's true.
I faked it.
Really?
Yeah, but the other way around. Like, I was done. Like, embarrassingly quick and safely. I just pretended I wasn't yet. And then later on, when I was like, all right, now I'm going to fake like a giant finale, even though that ended in Act 1. This has all been a facade. I did that and I was like 22.
See, I wonder what that would have been in this study for guys that faked orgasms.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, I have a much simpler theory. That the people who are willing to fake orgasms are the ones who practice deception more.
Yeah, totally.
So hence are more likely to deceive you and sleep with other people.
Right, you're saying people who lie are more likely to lie.
Exactly.
Got it. Yeah, no, that makes
Leave it to me. Leave it to me. Leave it to a girl to just overthink it, being like, be emotional. If he didn't call her that day, then she's gonna think about that. She's not gonna be able to make it work for her. Dang, guys. Yeah.
Is that your impression of a girl?
That's what I think girls sound like.
I love it.
That's why I was single for
Girl
so
does
long.
impression of girl. Love it. So good.
Trump's
I do the dude ones like, I'm a boy. I could just talk like one. Nope.
Trump's reaction to this story is fake orgasms.
Or the clitoris is fake news.
Yeah.
No? No one liked that one, huh? It's 5:19. I thought we were
Brett,
safe.
Yeah.
The clitoris is not fake news, okay? Just letting you know that. It's not fake. It's real.
Yeah, and believe me, he's got no problems down there.
Yeah, I got no problems. I got Melania has 5-6 clitorises.
Oh, Jesus.
Every
Okay.
night.
I'm pretty sure we've come to an end. Okay.
So to speak. Unless we faked it.
Okay. So we're going to do a post game next, and I'm going to ask a very inappropriate question to Grace about lesbian couples.
Awesome.
Okay. Very inappropriate. Sorry, but it has to happen.
Great.
That's in the post game. tytnetwork.com/join.
Will you let me answer it before she does?
Yes.
Of course.
I would like to take a stab at it.
But you're going to love my question.
Love
and
it.
You're going to say that is inappropriate, but totally appropriate. It makes sense. It is a question that had to be asked.
Got it.
Okay. So for the members, that's what's happening in the post game. Furthermore, later tonight, Aggressive Progressive members get all of that as well. tytnetwork.com/join. Bye-bye.